Hello, my name is Hannah Alfieri. This is an interview about Flashbacks for the Gainesville Business Oral History Project run by Inquire Capitalism program of the History Department at the University of Florida. Understand that for us and for the public, the information you are providing is a gift and it is incredible. It is an incredible historical resource and we dearly appreciate it. This interview will be available as part of the UF Oral History Collections and through UF Digital Collections and YouTube. So, could you please introduce yourself? What's your full name and could you spell it?
Full name is Tatum Nichtberger. First name is Tatum. Last name Nichtberger.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
So we can just jump right into talking a little bit about yourself. Did you grow up in Gainesville, and could you describe that a little bit?
Yes. Should I be looking at you?
You can look at the camera, either one.
Born and raised in Gainesville. I've never lived full-time anywhere else. I was born in 1990, about 4 or 5 years after my parents opened Flashbacks. So for me, it's been kind of part of just incorporated into my entire life. I went to school here. I was a lifer at PK Young, kindergarten through my senior year in high school. Then I went to Santa Fe, got my AA there, took an extended amount of time off, came to UF for a couple years, and then decided to go into the family business and didn't end up graduating at UF.
Could you describe your major at UF and your activities and what you studied a little bit?
So I was here for business. Like I said, I did 2 years, and then this was kind of around the time that the face of Flashbacks started to change, and I realized that I could continue Flashbacks on as a family business, and it was actually a lucrative business, as in where the 90s it was good, and my parents were surviving, but I was like, I want a little more than that. But around the time of COVID, it started to change. And so during my time at UF for business, I kind of was like, okay, I have so much real life business experience. This is probably what I'm going to end up doing. I probably don't necessarily need to finish out the degree if I'm going to end up working for myself.
Could you describe growing up with Flashbacks and kind of growing alongside the business?
Yes, so it was definitely an interesting experience. I have pictures of myself playing hide and seek in the racks with my friends at 2 years old. But growing up with it, it was not always a positive thing for me because in the 90s, thrifting was not like it is today. It was almost like a taboo. It was looked down upon. Only poor people did it. And so I remember in elementary school for parents' career day, and they would ask what my parents did, and I was always so embarrassed that my parents owned a thrift store. And when I was 16, I got my first job at the mall, and I would spend all my paychecks on Abercrombie and Hollister because I did not want used clothes. And so it's really funny to watch the business turn from something that only this very niche group of people shop there. And now looking back, I'm those were the really cool people in the 80s and 90s that I can't even imagine some of the finds that they got there. To now it's such a mainstream thing. I remember even probably 7-8 years ago working there and people coming in and squeezing through the racks, afraid to touch anything. People being my parents would kill me if they found out I was in a thrift store. So it's definitely been interesting watching just the progression of thrifting and secondhand shopping and how it's become more widely popular compared to what it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah, could you elaborate a little bit more on the population of who was shopping at the thrift store, including alternative cultures, or I know the punk scene was really big in Gainesville in comparison to the more mainstream, modern, post-COVID today?
Yeah, so this is definitely something Steve, my father, will be able to elaborate more on because I was 1 to 10 during this time. But from what I remember, it was kind of a lot of the punk scene. We still had a lot of locals, but it was more, I could be very wrong, it was we would get some of the hippies, the punks. I'm pretty sure in the 90s we had a pretty big drag customer base because that was something that was it was harder to go publicly shop for. And so we would get a lot of groups where Flashbacks became kind of like their safe space. And that's something that we've kind of tried to hold on to throughout as like we grow, that we still want it to be a safe space for like more marginalized communities.
Did you realize growing up that Flashbacks would become this sort of like a point in the community?
Absolutely not. No, it's crazy. Like I never really thought about the future of it because it was just so ingrained in my life. But just seeing where it was 10 years ago, where our busy day was now what is considered like, if we had one of what used to be our busiest days today, we'd be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? It's so slow. We never saw it blowing up like it did. It is hard for me to see it though, because I always say, like, if I had one wish, I would love to be able to view Flashbacks from the eyes of a customer. Because when I walk in, I see so many other little things. I would love to be able to just walk in like one of our regular shoppers and see it through their eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so speaking of that kind of turning point, could you describe that a little bit? Do you think it's more COVID or social media or any other general trends?
Honestly, I think a combination of COVID blowing up TikTok. I think there's probably other factors, but I think we owe a huge deal to TikTok and social media. Because during COVID, we almost closed. I remember we our doors were shut for about 3.5 months, and we were kind of getting down to like, okay, we have 2-3 more weeks that we can survive during while we were closed. I started doing like mystery style bundles. I had a quiz that people could fill out, and we were doing them locally for pickup. We were shipping some, but then it kind of got to the point, because we weren't taking clothes in, that we were running out of stuff. And it was kind of, I think, 3.5 months that we were closed. And that was the closest we've ever been to closing our doors permanently, like I'm sure a lot of businesses at that time were experiencing. But then after that, it wasn't overnight, but I remember I downloaded TikTok during COVID, for better or for worse, and I definitely got on the like thrifting algorithm, and I think that really a lot of young people were exposed to that so much during like the COVID lockdowns, that when everything started to reopen, they're like, oh my gosh, I've been watching videos on this for 3 months. I want to go do that. And it really, that for me was the turning point that I saw for Flashbacks, and also our location currently, which kind of coincided. We had been there less than a year when we shut down for COVID. I think the location also is another like huge factor in it, but between the two, I think those were the things that did it.
Mm-hmm. Could you talk about the original location and then where you guys are now?
Yeah, so we've been in 5 locations total. The first, I don't remember. I have very vague memories. I know the first, I always joke we had like a curse. My parents started it. My parents and a couple other friends started it, and then slowly all of them left to do other things and sold their shares to my dad. So by the end, he was the sole owner. But they also had something called the kids store for years. It was the same thing as Flashbacks, but kids clothes. And we had a curse of fires. The very first Flashbacks, which I can get pictures of, it's the building is catty corner to where the top is now on Main Street. It backed up to a church. I remember, I don't know the year, very early 90s, the church burnt down, which kind of burnt the back of our store. So we had to move there from there. And then the kids store, like 6 years later, burnt down. And that was the end of that. But so that, I believe, was the reason for our first move. From what I've heard, the very first location was tiny, like an actual tiny hole in the wall. Second location, I do have memories of. It was really cool. It's where it's 211 West University Avenue. It was the bar lit. That's closed down now. It's just empty. It's a 2-story building on University Avenue. That was really cool because Flashbacks was downstairs, and we rented out the upstairs to, I think we had a hair salon at one point. We had a shoe store. We had like a stuff, like antique store. And it used to have like a full plate glass window looking over University Avenue. So one of my main memories there is going up there when I was like 9 with my friends for the homecoming parade. We'd watch it from up there. That was a great location, but we had to move because our parking lot was directly across the street. And we have to have close parking because the business is, people are selling us their clothes. They're lugging huge trash bags and boxes to us. Someone I think bought that parking lot, so we couldn't use it anymore. And so our parking moved like 2 blocks away, and we were like, we can't expect people to sell us clothes and lug it blocks away. So from there, we moved to what was supposed to be a temporary location. We ended up being there 3 or 5 years. It was this tiny little place off of Northwest 6th Street and 10th Avenue. After that, we moved back to University Avenue into our largest location. It was at 818 West University Avenue by what used to be the Taco Bell and Checkers. There, it was really cool because we had so much space. We had an entire back room of like vintage furniture and knickknacks, but it was almost too big and unmanageable, and it's not the best location. And so then that leads us up to our 5th and hopefully final move, our current location, which is just kind of, I'm like, it's like the Goldilocks of the locations. It's just right. The location is perfect. The neighborhood, our neighbors, like everyone in our building, they all lend something unique to that plaza, and it all works together so well. And the size of the business is perfect. It's manageable, but it's not too small. So yeah, I hope as long as our landlord will have us there, we will stay there.
Perfect. So still a little bit on the customer base. Do you think there, in addition to COVID, was a change in attitude towards thrifting versus antique shopping or vintage shopping? Because you mentioned you had some vintage furniture at some point.
So yeah, I think before COVID, we definitely started to get that kind of, we were closer to campus, so we got a lot of foot traffic of students that I think they kind of discovered it there. It wasn't so like widely like shoved at them through social media. And so the furniture was popular, but what we realized with furniture is with clothes, it's easy. Like if a vintage piece comes in, sometimes we have to wash it, but then we can put it just like directly out. It's a 10-minute process from it coming in the door to going out on the racks. Where with furniture, we have to go like pick it up cities away. We'd have to spend a lot more on it. We'd clean it up, fix it up, and then we'd have to price it higher because we've already put $150 into it, so we'd price it at $200. And college students, naturally, even though it's a beautiful dresser, probably worth $300, we'd have it at $200. They don't want to spend that on a piece they're going to have 2 years, and so they'd be like, "Oh, can I get it for this?" Like, we can lower it a little, not really. And so, while it was really cool having furniture and it got people in there, it ended up just not being worth it for us. And so, I think the furniture helped a little bit, but I think with social media, it really like started to push like individual fashion onto people and kind of let people like explore these different ways of dressing, and that we see a lot, like people coming in and they're able to branch out and try like stuff they've seen online, but they're like, I don't want to spend a bunch of money to try this thing I might hate, but I can spend $6-7. And so I think, sorry, what was the, I just started going on a tangent. What was
the change in attitudes towards like more basic thrifting versus antiquing or vintage shopping?
I think it kind of went hand in hand. But I think because antiquing is harder, it's more of like a destination, especially in town. I think it helped the transition, but I don't think it was like one of the major factors in warming people up to like secondhand clothes.
Yeah, so speaking of towns, how do you think Flashbacks being located in a college town impact its development, and vice versa? How do you think Flashbacks has kind of impacted the college population and individuals wanting to try something new?
I think definitely being in a college town is one of the reasons we've survived. I often think about now that I'm, as of this week, the owner. I've thought about opening like way in the future. opening a second location, and I've been thinking of cities, and I'm like, even ones that are touristy without like a college area, it would be really hard unless it was like a big walking city like New York. So I think definitely being in a college town has helped exponentially, just because not only are college students typically way more interested in fashion, they're interested in exploring, they typically are looking for items on a budget, cheaper alternatives, and it helps that we buy clothes, and so we get a lot of people that are just like, I want to go to the beach this weekend, I'm looking for an extra $80 to spend, and so they'll sell us their clothes, and so that also helps, that they're able to get quick cash from us. And then I think the other way around, I wouldn't say we have a huge impact. I would like to think we do promote kind of a sense of sustainability, because especially we are fighting like the world of fast fashion right now, and we have seen that change so much in the clothes that get brought to us. It's so difficult. But so I hope that we are kind of impacting college students in seeing that, hey, I can pay the same that I would pay on Shein or another fast fashion, but get something that's vintage, that's been, like, this piece is 30 years old, it's gonna hold up for another 30 years, versus just like the cheapest, no, I don't even think it's polyester at this point, just like plastic.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of sustainability, you had also mentioned that a lot of like hippies were a lot of the earlier customers. Do you think your customer base has kind of grown or also held these sustainable values?
I think so. I think it's kind of both. We get people who are very against buying new clothes, and then we get the crowds that they don't really care. They're in there because they like clothes and they'll buy them wherever. But I do think that we do have a pretty big customer base that is just trying to not contribute to the fashion waste problem. But that, I think, was that was pretty prominent in the 90s, but it's still pretty prominent today, that we have a lot of people in there because they don't want to buy new, because there's just so much.
Do you find people donating fast fashion a lot more often now?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's terrible, because I feel really bad because, for example, like with furs, I personally, not a fur person, I hate fur, but I can justify sometimes when people bring in something that was from the 60s or 70s, I'm like, if we don't give it a life, it's gonna end up in a landfill. That animal's life is then reduced to absolutely nothing, where if we sell it, it will continue to have the use that it unfortunately was used for. And so that kind of thing I can justify, but then fast fashion, I try to use the same justification of, it was made, I would like it not to end up in a landfill, but it is just so, it's so terribly made. There's so much that if we bought, and I feel bad, we'll have people bring in 2 trash bags of clothes and we'll end up taking like 2 things, and they're like, did you not like my stuff? I'm like, it's nothing against it, it's just, it was all Shein. And if we also, Shein, let's say, I know it's a little higher now, but if it was $5 to $10 an item, we sell stuff at usually below 40% of cost. So if we filled up our racks with stuff for 99 cents, $1.99, we wouldn't have room for the cool stuff with the amount that it comes in. So it's definitely over the past few years. And I've seen it also just shift in general thrift stores. I know when we say no to it, it usually ends up at a Goodwill or something. And I've gone into Goodwill a few times in the past few years, and it's just all fast fashion. It's definitely a problem. We have noticed it comes in so much, but I'm hoping, I know prices just went up a little bit on there, so I'm hoping that maybe turns people away from it, but I know it probably won't fully.
Hopefully. You can always hope.
Yeah.
But also, speaking of sourcing, where else do you source your items? Do you just have this amazing customer base that donates all these items?
Yeah. So it's definitely built up. I know when my parents started in the 80s, they had to go out and look for stuff while they were building that up. But honestly, we have people ask, like sometimes people will see me at Goodwill, they're like, are you shopping for the store? And I'm like, no, this is my day off. That's actually the last thing I'm doing. I like to thrift too, but when I'm not at work. I don't think we would even have the time to go out and source other places. We have somehow, throughout the years, we actually have to buy by appointment only now because it got so busy and the amount of stuff coming in was so overwhelming that as far as clothes goes, stuff we still do source elsewhere. Sometimes with jewelry, we'll buy like estate auctions. And then also there are like special circumstances where, for example, like 2 weeks ago, we had someone call us and they're like, we just bought a house and it has all the stuff. Like the owner left all the stuff in it. Can you come out? And it was incredible. It was a huge house. There was probably 6 walk-in closets. And we got so much like stuff like knickknacks and clothes. So there are, when people have like a relative that has to weigh, sometimes if it's a large amount, we will go to them. But besides that, we have such a flow of it coming in that we don't have the need to really source elsewhere.
So what's it like thrifting as a thrift store owner now?
It has its challenges, and it's great because I can do it so fast. Like my friends love going thrifting with me because I can go so fast, and like just before looking at a tag, because I touch like 300 pieces of clothing a day, I can tell. Like they joke, like Lululemon. Before I see the logo, I'm like, oh, that's Lululemon. I can guess like 100 different brands or know if it's vintage or something. So that helps, but also because I've grown up in Flashbacks into where after I grew out of my Abercrombie and Hollister phase in 2008, I've been able to kind of just, Flashbacks has been my closet because my parents owned it. I could take a shirt home, bring a shirt back. So I am really cheap when it comes to thrifting. I'll go to like another vintage store and I'm like, I'm not going to pay $30 for that. We would sell that for $14.99 in Flashbacks. So it makes me a good bargain hunter. But I'm also, I always know if I see something that's really cool, unless it's like an insane one-of-a-kind piece, I'm like, that will eventually come into the store. It always does, no matter what.
Yeah. Do you have like a thrift holy grail that you found before?
Oh gosh, yes, I have. When I actually bought my house, it was just me at the time buying a house, and I was like, I need a 3-bedroom because I need a bedroom, an office, and a closet room, and that is now what I call my museum room. I have, I'd say my biggest kind of holy grail is I collect Betsy Johnson from the like 70s, 80s, 90s. And I have found like, so I have a piece from hers from like before she was even Betsy Johnson. She was Betsy Johnson at Paraphernalia, and she would create these like one-of-a-kind pieces. I found a shirt from there. I have some pieces from hers from the 80s that I'm like, if my house burnt down, I would grab my animals, maybe my birth certificate, and those. So yeah, I have a little like museum racks that are like I'm never getting rid of these in a million years. I'm gonna have a really good estate sale when I die.
So moving a little bit towards like business operations, all that stuff. Could you talk a little bit how the evolution of social media influenced the business? When did you guys get on social media? I know you've mentioned that you're transitioning to do more TikTok now, but like when Instagram first came out, can you describe any of those?
So to be honest, we were kind of hot and cold with social media when it came out, because we were never big enough to need a social media manager. So there'd be times where I'm like, I'm gonna go do photo shoots for it. And so if you scroll back to like the very beginning, I think our Instagram starts like, I wanna say 2018 is when we like started posting. And you can see like, you can kind of see the decades. I don't get service down here. Or like the eras of who was running our social media. So the first like couple photo shoots were me, just like when we started doing gator drops and stuff, I would come to the stadium and do photo shoots, but it was never a consistent thing. And then we kind of realized like we'd post like, hey, look at these Doc Martens we got to our story. And then in an hour, 10 people would be there, and whether or not they even got the shoes, they would shop and find 5 other things they like. So we're like, okay, this is useful. And so around that time is when we started hiring. We didn't outsource social media managers, but like current employees would take the job, and you can kind of see their like eras in our Instagram timeline. But then our current social media manager, Lily, she started our TikTok, and I love what she's doing on there. So yeah, we're very new to TikTok. We have TikTok, Instagram. We have a Facebook, but it's just kind of whatever. We just share whatever Instagram goes to there. But I'm excited for what she's doing on TikTok right now.
Yeah. So speaking of all the employees that kind of have taken the helm, how would you describe your company's workplace culture and how it's developed over time?
So it's definitely, we try to keep it, like I never want to be like a corporation or a corporate. Even as we grow, I try to keep it very like close and familial. I know it used to be closer in the 90s. I think we had a staff of like 5 people, whereas now we have probably 14. And we have like a lot more people coming and going. I think in the 90s it was more like my parents' friends who were all out of college. They would do it for years, to where we have students now. So every like once a year people are graduating, going and coming. But I still try to keep it where like it's not just like show up, work, get a paycheck. I want people to have fun there. While it is definitely the hardest version of this job it's ever been, because of how busy it is, I want our employees to have fun and never feel like it's just the like corporate grind. I don't think it could be that because of what it is, but I try to keep it just really like all of our employees are friends. They hang out, and I want it to just be like a fun place to work. Yeah.
So kind of your own place in the business, did you ever expect this to be a family business? Do you expect to kind of take over?
Not really. I actually, when I was going to school, I wanted to do exactly so. Up until this week when I shifted to owner, I was kind of a manager, but I was also the main buyer. So I was in the back. I bought 4 or 5 days a week. I was never really up at the front. And so I wanted to do exactly what I was doing, but weirdly enough, on a corporate level. I remember in like November of 2019, I was going to school here for business, and I applied for an internship as a buyer at the company is URBN. It's the like mother company of Free People, Urban Outfitters, and Anthropology. And I ended up flying up to Philadelphia to their home offices for an interview. And then a few months later, got the call that the program was being shut down for the summer because of COVID. And so I think I've always wanted to do what I'm doing, but I never really I was like, I don't want to stay in Gainesville. Flashbacks is so small. So I was like, I could do it, but I would like to do bigger things. But then kind of 2020 was just a year of kind of reevaluation for me. And then once we reopened and I saw how much it blew up is when I realized like, okay, I will be continuing this.
Do you have a kind of good leeway into where do you think the business is going to go into the future and what changes, if any, would you like to make?
Quite honest, right now, this week, very specifically this week has been so overwhelming that I'm like, I have no idea. I have talked about it. I don't know how feasible this is, if it will happen. I've talked about maybe opening like a small, because we do mainly clothes, but we have like jewelry in our jewelry. We have insane amounts. My house right now has like boxes that we'll buy at auctions in the States and sort through. And so I've talked about doing like a just Flashbacks jewelry store in like Manhattan or Brooklyn or somewhere where it's like a really walkable city, or maybe opening up a second location in another city outside of Florida. I think I need to get my footing as owner now and then reevaluate in a few years and see how doable that is, if I can leave this one for more than a few weeks at a time. kind of thing. But I would love to grow.
Do you think you would choose another location based on it being a college town or having like this kind of a similar punk scene or alt scene?
Yes and no. That would heavily factor in. But also at the same time, it's probably where, because I've lived in Gainesville my whole life, I am not against leaving Florida at some point. So it would be partially that, and then partially I'm moving to this place, and so I really want to love it. Right now I have my heart set on kind of the New England area, so I'm like, maybe Boston, maybe somewhere up there. And I know there's like 10 colleges in that area, so I think that would like mesh really well. But I think I would kind of naturally probably gravitate towards another college town. But that would play a big part in it, but also it would be like, do I want to live here?
Yeah, no, definitely. So a little bit more personal, what's next for you?
Right now it's just one day at a time, figuring out kind of how to balance everything. I didn't realize how big of a shift it would be. So now kind of, I mean, Flashbacks has always been kind of my life, but now I'm like, I'm there more than my house right now, which is great because I love it. I couldn't ask for a better job. I'm excited to go there most days. So I think, right now, I probably could have answered this much differently a month ago and maybe a few months in the future, but right now I'm like one day at a time. I have no idea, just trying to keep the business afloat. I don't think there will be any problems if it keeps going the way it's going. I don't have to do anything major to make that happen besides just show up and make sure it's stocked. I think just I'm excited to enter this into this chapter of my life with being the owner of Flashbacks.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Those are all gosh, I can't speak. Those are all the questions I've had for you. I'm going to open up the floor. Is there anything else you would like to comment on, speak on?
I don't think so. I think that you pretty much covered a good bit of it. Yeah, I can't think of anything that
Perfect.
extra.
All right, so thank you again for your time. Again, this is a wonderful resource that's going to be added to Gainesville business history. And hopefully we can build on it and maybe meet again in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you for doing this. I'm excited to look at all the other businesses on there. I know I've tried to find businesses 40, 50 years ago in Gainesville, and it's so hard.